Hello and welcome everyone to my commander deck tech on Varina, Lich Queen. This is a zombie tribal deck, geared towards a casual yet powerful meta. So why should you use Varina? Zombie tribal is one of the most powerful and interesting tribes to build around. However, there are plenty of other zombie commanders to choose from, so why did I choose Varina over the others? Varina is incredibly powerful, packing a ton of abilities, all that lend themselves to powerful synergies in the deck. She has access to 3 colors, something that the other zombie commanders don't have access to. As I said, Varina has a lot of abilities, so let's go over them in further detail. Whenever you attack with one or more zombies, draw that many cards, then discard that many cards. You gain that much life. This ability alone tells us to build the deck in a few specific ways. First, you need to go wide with zombies, which obviously leads to a zombie tribal build. Second, her ability loots, meaning she fills up the graveyard, so the deck needs some sort of graveyard synergy to benefit from that. And the deck probably doesn't need any self-mill cards taking up any deck slots, since she fills up the graveyard on her own. And third, she gives us life, meaning this deck can abuse cards like Phyrexian Reclamation and Graveborn Muse. 2 generic mana, exile 2 cards from your graveyard. Create a tap 2/2 black zombie creature token. This ability synergizes well with her looting ability, allowing you to exile the cards that you discard. This ability also means Varina can create an entire zombie army on her own, which feeds into her first ability, which allows you to draw and discard more cards, which gives you more graveyard exile targets, which gives you more zombies, and so on. Ghoulcaller Gisa, like Varina, can create an entire army of zombies. However, I have 2 problems with her. One is the fact that she's mono black. I'm not a fan of monocolored commanders, since they fully inherit any weaknesses that the color has without having access to another color to compensate for the color's weaknesses. As an example, mono black can't interact with enchantments or artifacts. About the only way you could deal with them is through awkward colorless spells like Scour from Existence or Spine to Isha, or through discard. But most of the powerful discard spells like Duress and Thoughtseize are terrible in Commander since they only hit one opponent. My second problem with Ghoulcaller Gisa are the hoops you have to jump through to activate her ability. First, you have to tap her, which you have to wait a turn cycle to do, unless if you give her haste or a 1,000-year elixir, but you also need a creature to sacrifice too. Unlike Varina, Gisa has no card advantage attached to her. Also, on a minor note, she isn't a zombie, so she doesn't get pumped up by the zombie lords, and she gets killed by Noxious Ghoul and Zombie Apocalypse. Even with all these negatives, she is definitely a solid zombie commander that I could see people using. Grimgrin Corpseborn is another popular zombie commander and is a piece of the Rooftop Storm combo in the command zone, with Grimgrin being the sacrifice outlet for the combo. Grimgrin is just a solid creature in general. He's able to get huge and shoot down your opponent's creatures. Unfortunately, Grimgrin has one glaring weakness. You need to sacrifice creatures and untap him. And without a good way to constantly make zombies, Endless Ranks of the Dead doesn't count. The card is secretly terrible, even though the art is amazing. You end up sacrificing creatures that you don't want to sacrifice, and the deck ends up just falling apart. Plus, you still can't deal with artifacts or enchantments, unless if you use counter magic, something this deck doesn't seem to mesh well with. A Grim deck just ends up being a Rooftop Storm combo deck rather than zombie tribal. Gisa and Geralf are solid as a zombie tribal commander. They fill up your graveyard and give you a way to recur your zombies from the graveyard. However, they share the same problem as Grim, which is the inability to deal with artifacts and enchantments, and counter magic not meshing well with the deck. They're also not zombies, which is a little annoying, but overall they are a solid choice as a zombie commander. The last zombie commander I'll go into detail about is the Scarab God. Now this card lives up to the title of a god. He does almost as much as Varina. He drains your opponent, scries cards, recurs creatures from any graveyard as tokens, and is difficult to keep off the board since he goes back to the owner's hand at the next end step when he dies. My only problem is the fact that it can be difficult to make a decently sized army of zombies to abuse the Scarab God's abilities. I think the Scarab God would work better in a Varina deck rather than being the commander of his own deck, since Varina solves the Scarab God's only problem. Here are a couple of other potential zombie commanders that have better strategies than Zombie Tribal. Thraxamundar works better as a Grixis control deck with him being the finisher, especially since red adds nothing to Zombie Tribal. Sidisi Brood Tyrant works better as a self-mill deck than a Zombie Tribal deck. Cedrus the Traitor King works better as an ETB from your graveyard deck. And Mikaeus the Unhallowed is better as a combo deck. Varina solves two problems that all the previous zombie commanders had, one being able to deal with artifacts and enchantments efficiently, and the other being the ability to easily create an army of zombies. Narrowing down to just 100 cards for this deck was nearly impossible, since there are so many awesome zombies. However, I think I've got a solid deck list. So what cards did I end up putting in the deck? This is obviously a zombie tribal deck, so what cards synergize with our zombies? Cemetery Reaper is a zombie lord that acts as both graveyard hate and as a way to pump out zombie tokens that actually come to play untapped. For some reason, zombies usually come to play tapped, probably because they're tired from being dead. For a 1-drop, Crypt Breaker does a lot. First off, it fills up the graveyard while making a zombie token. Second off, it allows you to tap your zombies to draw cards. Again, pretty good for a 1-drop. Death Baron is a zombie lord that pumps up your zombies and gives them death touch. Oh yeah, and it pumps up skeletons for some reason. But who cares about that? This is a zombie deck, not some crappy skeleton deck. Diagraph Captain is a zombie lord that pumps up your zombies while punishing your opponents for killing any zombies. He's also a combo finisher for the Rooftop Storm combo. Diagraph Colossus is a zombie producing factory that can potentially be huge later on in the game. Gempalm Polluter is a cantrip that can usually deal a decent chunk of damage to an opponent. This card is real silly when paired with a card like Phyrexian Reclamation for continual cycling cheese. Gisa and Geralf are great as a consistent way to get your zombies out of the graveyard on each of your turns. I'd usually recommend not using Graveborn Muse in most zombie decks, since life loss becomes too much to handle rather quickly. However, Varina's life gain ability is able to severely mitigate the life loss, changing this card from unplayable to one of the most powerful card draw engines in the deck. Gravecrawler is the perfect symbol to represent zombies as a whole, showing off zombies' persistence, synergy, and sheer power while doing all these things with subtlety. He gets additional points for playing a key role in the Rooftop Storm combo. Lord of the Accursed is a lord that pumps up your zombies, while also allowing you the option to give them all menace. Lord of the Undead is a lord that pumps up your zombies, and allows you to return a zombie from a graveyard to your hand. He's one of the most powerful zombies in the deck. Noxious Ghoul works great as a one-sided creature shrinker, or just a plain old one-sided board wipe. He pairs well with the Rooftop Storm combo, or just pairs well with Gravecrawler in general. Plague Belcher is a drain effect on your opponents, and as a bonus he's potentially a 5/4 with menace, which is nothing to scoff at. Relentless Dead does quite a lot of things for being a 2-drop. First, he's a 2/2 with menace, making him a half-decent attacker, especially when he's getting powered up by some zombie lords. Second, he's ridiculously easy to recur back to your hand for just 1 black mana. And third, he's able to grab a zombie buddy out of the graveyard when he dies, making him half-decent at recurring zombies from the graveyard. Risen Executioner is a zombie lord that can be played from the graveyard, making it great discard fodder for Varina. Shepherd of Rot is a zombie that I wouldn't put in most zombie decks because this guy hits all players, including you. But since Varina has a way to gain life, you have a decent chance at being at a higher life total than your opponents. The Scarab God will put a ton of pressure on your opponent's life totals while turning through your deck for the perfect cards. He's also got Graveyard Recursion for all graveyards, single-handedly creating a zombie army of 4/4s. And his Hour of Devastation Bolas God ability ensures that it will be a pain in the butt for your opponents to keep this god off the battlefield. Undead Warchief is easily the best zombie lord. +2/+1 is just stupid, often doubling the power of your zombies. And he makes your zombies cheaper to cast, opening up your mana for Varina's ability, leading to the creation of even more zombies. Vengeful Dead is a zombie drainer that hits all of your opponents, and even triggers if your opponent's zombies die, which I guess could be relevant sometimes. Wayward Servant is an ETB life drainer. It's nice to have some life gain in the deck in addition to Varina's life gain. Zombie Master is a lord that makes dealing with their zombies a pain in the butt, and makes blocking them even more of a pain, especially if there's an Herb or a Tomb of Yawgmoth on the board. Cavern of Souls helps to cast their zombies and also makes it so they can't be countered. Path of Ancestry scries one every time you use it to cast a zombie. Rooftop Storm is already broken, allowing us to play our zombies for free, but paired with Gravecaller, it enables a Rooftop Storm combo. Cemetery Recruitment is a recursion spell. It's also a cantrip, making it free card advantage. Even at the steep cost of 7 mana, Kindred Dominance is well worth it. A one-sided board wipe is just ridiculous in Commander, and ends up being a great way to close out the game. Zombie Apocalypse is a mass graveyard recursion to the battlefield effect, often winning you the game with all the ETB triggers from Gary and Wayward Servant. Plus, this card kills all humans, the most used creature type in Magic. The zombie lords need something to pump up, so what better than an army of tokens? These cards help bolster that army. Varina is obviously the card that's going to be pumping out the most zombie tokens in this deck. Like I stated before in the previous section, Cemetery Reaper, Crypt Breaker, and Diregraph Colossus can make zombie tokens. I didn't want to use Army of the Damned in this deck. Like Endless Ranks of the Dead, I think it's secretly bad. First of all, the mana cost is absurd at 8, and then 10 if you want to flash it back. But the biggest problem is the fact that these zombies come into play tapped, which just screams to your opponents, "Please kill me before these untap," which will happen most of the time, especially since you just wasted 8 mana on something that's essentially useless until your next turn, making you a sitting duck. Josu Vest Lich Knight solves Army of the Damned's many problems. The most important difference is the fact that his tokens actually come into play untapped, and have the nice bonus of Menace attached to them. You can also just cast them for 4 mana. A 4/5 with Menace that can be easily pumped up with Zombie Lords is definitely going to put some pressure on your opponents. But the most important thing is that Josu Vest is a zombie, meaning it can be continually recurred from the graveyard with the many graveyard recursion effects in this deck, something that Army of the Damned is unable to do. I'm sorry that I had to go on such a tangent about one card, but I always get dirty looks and confused comments when I run Josu Vest over Army of the Damned, and I needed to give a detailed comparison, since it's not immediately obvious why Josu Vest is better than Army of the Damned, especially when comparing raw power. The tokens that the Scarab God makes are zombies, so they get the benefits from the zombie synergies that we have in the deck. Anointed Procession doubles the amount of tokens you get. It's simple and effective. Recursion is an important part of any zombie deck, and is one of the reasons why the tribe is so powerful. Having Go Lich not only allows you to cast creatures from your graveyard, but can cast your opponent's creatures from their graveyard too. Lord of the Undead is both a zombie lord and a way to recur your creatures from the graveyard. When Relentless Dead dies, he's easy to recur back to your hand, but you can also grab a zombie friend too. The Scarab God, like Having Go Lich, can grab a creature from any graveyard. Unholy Grotto provides graveyard recursion attached to a land, and with the way Varina tears through your deck, the creature going on top is hardly a drawback. Phyrexian Reclamation is one of the most effective and efficient recursion spells in Commander. Any deck that even slightly wants to recur their creatures should run this card. Cemetery Recruitment is a cantrip recursion spell, making it incredibly efficient. Living Death is both a mass recursion spell and a board wipe. You can easily win the game with this card if you set up properly using Varina. Zombie Apocalypse functions like Living Death, and also can easily win you the game. The deck is in the Esper color pairing, meaning it has access to some of the best removal and counter spells in Commander. Even though this deck isn't a control deck, the removal and disruption package should be pretty powerful. Fleshbag Marauder is normally a mediocre edict effect, especially when compared to Plaguecrafter. However, since Fleshbag is a zombie, it makes it much easier to recur it for repeatable ETBs. Grim Corpseborn is removal on a stick, Just swing in and snipe one of your opponent's creatures. Noxious School gives -1/-1 to all non-zombie creatures, which can be stacked up quickly by making tokens with Varina or repeated ETBs with Gravecrawler. Vengeful Pharaoh is the best card to discard of Varina's ability. It'll just sit in the graveyard repelling would-be attackers, or it repeatedly kills an opponent's creature. Anguished Unmaking is just a solid removal spell, and should be played in any deck that can run it. Arcane Denial, Counterspell, Countersquall, and Negate is the counterspell suite that I play in any deck that can use them. Counterspells are some of the best cards in Commander, so any deck with blue should jam in a few at least. You're playing blue, so you need to be playing Cyclonic Rift. It's as simple as that. Paths to Exile and Swords to Plowshares go into every deck running white. Their efficiency cannot be understated, and sometimes the tempo blowout will be so huge that it will take a player out of the game, all just for 1 mana. Return to Dust is a staple for any deck running white. It's a simple 2-for-1 removal spell for artifacts and enchantments. Kindred Dominance is a one-sided board wipe. Living Death sacrifices the entire board. Toxic Deluge is one of the only 3-mana board wipes in Commander. It's ridiculously efficient and effective. It even gets around indestructible. Zombie Apocalypse destroys humans, which might hit a handful of creatures. The deck's main way to gain card advantage is through Graveyard Recursion and Varina's ability to loot. However, it doesn't hurt throwing in a couple of powerful card draw spells that help the deck run more efficiently. Crypt Breaker is card advantage attached to a 1-drop for a small drawback of tapping your creatures. Graveborn Muse will draw you a stupid amount of cards, setting you up for an almost imminent victory. Mystic Remora and Rhystic Study are the most powerful card draw spells in blue, and go in any deck that can run them. This deck isn't very ramp heavy, unlike most of my other Commander decks, since you want to play low drop zombies turn 1 through 3, then play Varina turn 4, rather than trying to ramp into your commander as quickly as possible like most other Commander decks. Vesper Ghoul is Birds of Paradise if Birds of Paradise was bad, but he's a zombie, so he's actually pretty good in this deck since he benefits from all the zombie synergies. Land Tax is already an excellent card. However, it gets almost broken in this deck since the basics that you grab with Land Tax become great discard fodder for Varina, effectively drawing you cards for free while filling up your graveyard. The deck runs both the black signets for the Esper colors. This deck is so heavily black that I didn't want to put any non-black mana rocks. Felwar Stone is the best 2 CMC mana rock in Commander. Talisman of Dominance is the only talisman in Esper colors that taps for black, so I included it in the deck. Unfortunately, there's no zombie version of Sol Ring, so I guess we'll just be basic and throw in normal Sol Ring. These are the cards that didn't fall under any of the previous categories. Corpse Connoisseur tutors a zombie buddy in the graveyard so it can be recurred later. Grey Merchant of Asphodel is just a generically good black card, but Gary will end up winning the game if you send him off the big Zombie Apocalypse or Living Death, which should flood your board with a ton of black devotion, draining out your opponents. Sidisi Undead Vizier is a tutor on an easily recurable zombie. Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots gives our creatures some much needed haste, since Varina triggers on attack, and they give the equipped creatures some much needed protection too. Diabolic Intent tutors for any card, and Varina can easily poop out a zombie to die for the sacrifice cost. I don't run Demonic Tutor or Vampiric Tutor because they are expensive price-wise, and I needed to find some excuse to cut out cards to make this a 99 card deck. These are the lands that I use in the deck. Cavern of Souls should go in any tribal deck. It makes counterspells less effective against your deck. I only play the Esper Pain lands that have black in them since the deck relies so heavily on black. Also, the 1 life payment is well worth the cost for a dual land that comes into play untapped. City of Brass and Mana Confluence go in every multicolored deck. The 1 life payment is well worth the cost for a redundant command tower. Command Tower obviously goes in every multicolored commander deck. Isolated Chapel and Drowned Catacomb are the only two check lands I play since Glacial Fortress doesn't tap for black. Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse are crappy lands. However, they feed Varina's ability to make zombies since they go to the graveyard when used. If you want to play the off-colored fetch lands instead of these two, I'd recommend Bloodstained Mire and Verdant Catacombs since they search up black, but I don't think they're worth running for the extra money. Exotic Orchard is an excellent land that I'd recommend running in any deck with 3 or more colors since it's usually just another command tower. Marsh Flats, Polluted Delta, and Flooded Strand are the fetch lands in the Esper color combination. Godless Shrine, Watery Grave, and Hollowed Fountain are the shock lands in Esper and are likely what you'll be grabbing with your fetch lands. Morphic Pool and Sea of Clouds are the Battle Bomb lands that are auto-includes in any deck that can run them. Path of Ancestry is great in any tribal deck and is probably the best land that comes into play tapped. Reflecting Pool should be played in every multicolored deck. Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth is an auto-include in any deck running black, especially in a black heavy deck like this one. Unholy Grotto is obviously fantastic in any zombie deck. 2 plains, 2 islands, and 13 swamps finish off the land base. As you can see, the deck runs a ton of swamps to make up for the fact that the deck is so heavily black. This deck runs one combo, that being the Rooftop Storm combo. For the uninitiated, the Rooftop Storm combo is Rooftop Storm plus Gravecrawler plus a sack outlet, Carrion Feeder or Grim equals infinite zombie ETBs and death triggers. Rooftop Storm makes your zombies cost 0 mana to play, and Gravecrawler's ability lets you play it from the graveyard, allowing you to continually play it from the graveyard without using any mana as long as you have a way to continually sacrifice it. This may seem useless, but paired with Diregraph Captain, Plague Belcher, Vengeful Dead, or Wayward Servant, you're able to kill off your opponents with infinite damage. I want to thank you for watching my deck tech on Varina Lich Queen. I'd appreciate if you smash that like button, comment, and subscribe. And again, thank you for watching.